Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dominique. I am a yoga instructor and personal trainer and the owner of Body Mind Fitness, which is located in Lambeth. So I get asked a question quite often, and that is why pelvic health? Why do you specialize? Why do you preach about it? Why do you talk about it? And I wanted to come on here and tell a little bit of a story of exactly why pelvic health, since that seems to be coming up quite a bit lately, especially with a bunch of new followers and such as well. So why? Why is a big question. So that story goes back pretty close to 3 years ago now. I have been in the fitness industry since 2010, so coming up on that 10-year mark, and I was in my maternity leave with my firstborn. So at about 4 months postpartum, I started to try to get back into fitness. So I had been doing a little bit here and there, mostly yoga, and then at 4 months I was like, I'm ready, I'm going to do weightlifting, I am going to get my pre-baby body back. That is where I was at the time. So because of the nature of the work that I did before, I was working for a larger chain gym, and the concept of the classes there was for me to do the classes in its entirety with everyone. So just doing the classes that I was doing, I was getting my full workout and probably a little bit too much every week just by teaching the classes that I was teaching. So I took this opportunity of being on maternity leave to try the insanity workout. My brother had tried it, my dad had tried it, I knew a whole bunch of friends that had tried it, and I was like, I am going to do the insanity program. And I don't inherently think there was anything wrong with it. However, being 4 months postpartum, maybe I should have rethought it. So I did know going into it that I was going to have to create different variations, different options to accommodate the weakness that had happened in my body due to childbirth, due to the last couple of weeks leading up to birth being very not movement oriented at all. And I went ahead and made those modifications even though they weren't provided in the video. So I made it through. I wasn't happy. I shouldn't say I wasn't happy. I didn't see the results that I was looking for, and that is because I found out, for me, nursing and my history with dieting, my body loved to hold on to every spare ounce of fat possible because I was now, at the time I was nursing, and I had to provide that nutrients for my baby girl. So I know this having gone through a couple of pregnancies now where, that was some fur flying. And I just got to know myself too. And I know a bit about the science behind dieting as well through some of the other trainings that I have been through. So this was me. This was my reality. This is not the reality for everyone, but this was my reality. And as soon as I started seeing any kind of results, whether it was weight loss or starting to tone, I noticed that my milk supply was dropping. So at the time, I made nursing a priority to do it as long as possible. I wasn't great at it. Long story short, it didn't last very long, but I digress. So then flash forward to 8 months postpartum, I was in the kitchen. I hadn't been nursing anymore, and I was kind of returning back to some of the regular programming that I was doing, and all I was doing was standing in the kitchen, cooking, standing there, and I peed my pants. And I peed my pants just standing there. So I'm not talking about jumping on a trampoline or laughing or sneezing or running. I was standing there and I peed my pants. Very lucky for me at the time, I was working for a company that had pelvic floor physiotherapists there. I didn't quite understand the concept of it very much, but I did have kind of an inkling of what that meant. To be honest, at the time, I thought, I had Diastasis Recti because that was the big thing that everyone was talking about pregnancy. And when I kind of step outside of my pelvic health professional bubble, I do know that that's still being talked about as largely the situation that women who've recently given birth have. So I booked myself with a pelvic floor physiotherapist, hoping that this was not too late and I wouldn't be in panty liners for the rest of my life, because I truly did believe that this was going to be the rest of my life. Whenever I had talked to anybody about things, or I overheard conversations from other people, it seemed like women who either had children or who were aging became incontinent, and it was just the normal thing. It was just the way it is. And nobody really mentioned anything about how to fix that or how to avoid that happening. It was just one of those things that happens because we were lucky enough to be born women. So I went into this appointment not really knowing what was going to happen. I went in thinking I knew there was going to be an assessment. I'm trying to think back now a little bit. So I knew there was going to be assessment, and I was hoping that something could be done, but realistically, because of all this information that I had been told in the past, I really wasn't sure that anything would come out of it, that I would just be stuck that way. So as someone having come from a past where I was not very comfortable with my body growing up and through my early 20s, and it was only just before pregnancy that I started kind of accepting the way I was, now I felt like my body was broken. I felt like my body was broken and there was nothing that I could do about it. And I can sit here and talk about that now, but at the time, I remember sitting on the bathroom floor and crying about it because I really truly felt that this was another example of how my body had failed me. For those of you who do know, I also have a history of miscarriage. So both of my daughters that I birthed, I have 4 children total, 2 bonus, 2 birthed. Both of my daughters, the youngest in the families, are rainbow babies. So I had a miscarriage before each of them. So I already had a hard time. I was a little bit disconnected from my body and having trust in its ability to do things. Now I had this other thing on my plate. So I went to this appointment and I was very excited to find out that there is something that can be done. A, it's preventable, which was not where I was at the time. And B, it was manageable. And at the place where I was at that time, it was very manageable. So I had 2 appointments relatively close together because we needed to gather some information and see where the incontinence piece was coming from. So I will tell you this right now, I did not have diastasis recti like I had thought. But what I did have was a situation where I wasn't hydrating enough. So this may seem a little bit backwards because I also talk to a lot of women who, if they get urge incontinence, where that is that it suddenly comes on and they have to go to the bathroom right now, or they might pee their pants. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about urge incontinence. They avoid drinking. They avoid drinking anything if they know they're not going to be near a bathroom for long periods of time. Mine was not from that, but it was from the fact that I needed a lot of caffeine as the mom of an under 8-month-old and a 10-year-old and 9-year-old at the time. And I just wasn't hydrating enough. Crazy, right? So what happens here is your urine becomes super concentrated because you're not getting that hydration, and it irritates your bladder. And that's what causes the incontinence, because your body thinks that has to go. It kind of creates a similar feeling, not to go into the crazy science behind it, because that's not what we're here to talk about today. So after this meeting that I had a couple of follow-ups. I think I had about 3, 4, maybe total. And then I was basically discharged being told your pelvic floor is boring and you could go home. So at the time, I was specializing in prenatal and postnatal clients. That is a whole other story and not a huge portion of why we're here today, but I really loved the support that was provided to me through yoga classes when I was pregnant, especially following my miscarriages, that I wanted to create that feeling for women, for other women as well, regardless if they had miscarriage or not, just creating community, giving them a place where they can really focus on themselves. But then my attention started being drawn to this other piece, this pelvic health piece, which is a huge part of pregnancy. It is not the only part. Men can get symptoms of pelvic floor concerns. So can people who've never had children. I have a number of clients who are not mothers or who birth babies long enough ago that their babies are having babies. So I was lucky enough that the same pelvic floor physiotherapist offered to sit down with a group of us who were all teaching at this facility and give us kind of a mini training on what to keep our eye out for. And this was my first sort of foray, I guess you could call it, into pelvic health. So she broke down the typical symptoms, gave us a few exercises that we could incorporate into our classes, and kind of gave us a general overview of what is pelvic health. and so became the obsession. It didn't necessarily end there, but yes, or I should say it didn't necessarily. Yes, baby?
I need you, because the bag fell.
Okay, I'll get to you in a second.
A different bag.
Okay, I'm going to be there in just a minute, okay?
You need to move it.
All right, I'll be there in 2 seconds, baby. So that means I've got to wrap this up. Speaking of, that's the one who was 8 months old when I peed my pants. You didn't see her, but she's like 3 now. So this is where my obsession began. So at the time, there really wasn't much out there in terms of programming, or I should say trainings for fitness professionals for pelvic health specific. So I continued down my path of prenatal, postnatal, and luckily we live at a time where pelvic health was touched on greatly. So I studied with Girls Gone Strong. I did stuff with Bellies Inc. I met the amazing Shannon Crow, who, if you haven't heard of her, she runs the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. She's a pelvic health professional herself. She's a marketing guru for yoga teachers, and she also runs pelvic health training. So I did my very first specific pelvic health training with her, and it really opened the doors to so many things. Since then, I have become a founding member of the Pelvic Health Professionals website directory, educational website, which is a great opportunity for me to continue to stay up to date on the latest things that are pelvic health. So I can start bringing that back to you, because things are constantly changing. In the 3 years that I have been specializing in pelvic health, the things that have changed are mind-blowing. I look back 3 years ago at some of the things that I was doing when I was, starting to get to know things, and it wasn't the fact that I didn't have enough education. It's just that this education wasn't really out there. And now it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing. I just got an email. So that's what that ding was about. So that's my story. That's how I am where I am. My big goal is just to empower women. And that seems really cliche. I feel like everyone says, I want to empower women. Coming from a background where I was an actor and a fitness professional, where my body was constantly scrutinized and I was made to feel badly about the way I looked if I didn't fit a certain ideal, this really changed the way my studio ran as well. So in addition to the pelvic health stuff, I also started becoming certified in body image coaching as well as intuitive eating, which my intuitive eating journey is still ongoing, but I'm definitely in a great place. And this does not mean that I love my body every single day. I have bad days too. I have really crappy days where I just look at a picture and I go, whoa, who is that person? We're all there. Just because somebody's spouting off body positivity doesn't mean that, we're all going to be there. But this pelvic health piece to me was essential in my body positivity journey. When I was able to regain control of the function of my body, it was life-changing. It was absolutely life-changing. And I will tell you that right now, I honestly don't know where I would be. Truly, if it wasn't for this. I'm getting borderline emotional. So I'm going to stop that right there. But yeah, it has been an essential piece to who I am, where I am. And as I mentioned in my little blurb at the beginning, if you even saw that, is just because you had a baby or you didn't have a baby doesn't mean that you can't get pelvic floor concerns or pelvic floor symptoms. Men can get it. Athleticism can get it. There was a video in one of my trainings where women were almost glorifying during the CrossFit Open that they left a puddle of pee behind, which was mind-boggling. I should post that one day. It's just absurd because it doesn't need to be that. Athleticism, injury, surgery, larger bodied individuals. There's all kinds of things that can stimulate pelvic floor concerns. Mine started, guaranteed, in the 2nd grade during an assembly when I looked around the gym sitting on the floor and I was sitting up nice and tall, and I looked around and everyone else was hunched over and I went, oh, I guess that's how you sit. I'm going to sit like that too. And I started sitting and rounding and making myself smaller. And alignment is a huge piece. Breath is a huge piece. So I came on here today to tell you about my journey of how I became a pelvic floor expert and why it is so important to me. And now I'm getting way off track like I normally do. And apparently I need to go into the other room and help pick a bag off the floor. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me live. A few of you popped in and out, and if you want to say hi, I'd love to know you were here. Throw me an emoji. Let me know what you thought of the content. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns. Other than that, I've got to head to class soon. So I'm going to start wrapping up things here. Go pick up this bag my 3-year-old is talking about having fallen, and I will catch you soon. So thanks so much for tuning in today. And as always, I'm an open book. Send me a DM. Let me know if you've got any questions, and let me know how I can help you out. While I'm here, I should mention I have one spot left right now for one-on-one coaching, whether it's personal training or private yoga. I only have one spot. So if you've ever been curious about that, you can set up a free goal mobility assessment, and there's no worries behind it. There's no, you don't have to do anything with it, but it is there to see if it's something that you could use, you could need, and it's something you're interested in. So as always, thanks so much for tuning in, and yeah, I look forward to hanging out here with you again soon. I also did not touch this cup of coffee. All right, I'm just getting ridiculous now. Talk to you later. Bye.